Us in prayer and scripture, please.
Yes, ma'am. Scripture is coming from Joshua 3:7-17, and this is where the Israelites asked God, where do we go from here? Joshua 3 and verse 9. And Joshua said to the Israelites, draw near to the word of your God. The word of God for the people of God. Let us pray. God, bless this annual Black History celebration presented by New Calvary Temple. God, bless our celebration of excellence through this event for the next 4 nights. God, orchestrate each night to release excellence and healing within the atmosphere. Bless Pastor Timothy Hopson and Dewana Lindsay and all who collaborated to bring this event to fruition. God, the question is posed, where do we go from here? Let your Shekinah glory break out from amongst the words and actions of tonight's facilitators and panelists. Father, you are El Elyon, the God Most High. And because we know you to be El Shaddai, God Almighty, we trust that you, like you did with the Israelites in Joshua 3 and 7, you will do the same and give us insight about where to go from here. Father, we thank you for another day, and we ask these blessings in your darling Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. A bit of Black history trivia for the New Calvary Temple Church family. Prophetess Gaines' father is the one responsible for our art mural of the Black Jesus over our baptism pool. A great artist from North Little Rock. Thank you, Prophetess Gaines.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2024 Fireside Chat that the New Calvary Temple Church of God in Christ has each year in celebration of Black History Month. This year, our theme is Celebrating Black Excellence, and we're excited to have great speakers and great facilitators and presenters during the month of February. I'm excited about our first panel, which will be discussing the state of Black America. Where do we go from here? This is the third in a series of discussions we've had over the last few years about the state of Black America. This evening, our facilitators are none other than Mrs. Martie North Hamilton and Scott Hamilton. I'm going to give you a brief bio of the Hamiltons, and then I will turn it over to them. We are so blessed to have Judge Wendell Griffin that will be presenting on social justice, Senator Fred Love that will be presenting on the political future, and Ms. LaTricia Hill-Chandler, which will be talking about the economic equity in the United States today. Black history is American history. Black culture is American culture. And Black stories are essential to the ongoing story of America. Our faults, our struggles, our progress, and our aspirations. Shining a light on Black history today is as important to understanding ourselves and growing stronger as a nation as ever before. That is why it is essential that we take time to celebrate the immeasurable contributions of Black Americans. honor the legacies and the achievements of generations past, and reckon with centuries of injustice and confront those injustices that still fester today. But most often during Black History Month, instead of focusing on the importance of Black history to all of us, we put on a display of Black pain. We learn about slavery and Jim Crow and civil rights and the deaths of Black leaders. An understanding of these issues is vital to understanding American history. But these should be discussed year-round, not just in February. So instead of focusing only on those painful legacies, for this Black History Month, I would like for us to focus on honoring the legacy of Black Americans and celebrating Black excellence. The New Calvary Temple Church motto is changing lives for the better. And our 2024 theme is teamwork. So no better way than I can think of is introducing a power couple team this evening to facilitate our panel. Martie North Hamiltons and Scott Hamilton have always called Arkansas home. Scott was born in Little Rock and Martie was born at the Little Rock Air Force Base. Scott attended Hall High School and Martie Searcy High School. Scott completed his bachelor's degree at Hendrix College and Martie completed hers at the Harding University. Martie is a senior vice president for community development at Cadence Bank, and her work doesn't stop there. Martie shares her husband's love for helping the community and is an avid volunteer for many groups. Scott has an MBA from the University of Missouri at Kansas City. And after his JD, he returned home to Little Rock. He currently serves as the CEO of the Urban League of Arkansas. I would like them to share whatever else they would like to know about us. But without any further ado, I will be turning the discussion over to Mrs. Martie North Hamilton and Mr. Scott Hamilton. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening. It is truly an honor and a pleasure to be able to join you this evening. Thank you to New Calvary Temple for the invitation. Thank you, Soror Dewana Lindsay, for the invitation. And also, I want to apologize in advance, just in case I need to apologize. Scott and I are sitting in our kitchen in our house at two different angles, and our 1.5-year-old little Russian toy terrier is demanding of our attention. So periodically, you may hear us have to go on mute because this dog will not cooperate, and he would not let us catch him to put him up. He's all of 6 pounds, and he's quick on his feet. So I apologize if we get that technical interruption during our time together this evening. But thank you, and I absolutely love this topic and starting off this month focusing on Black excellence. Happy Black History Month. But as I always say, we celebrate Black 365. Scott, would you like to introduce yourself? Say a few words before I start my conversation.
I think Martie, my better half, said it best, so there's not much left for me to say. But again, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity as well to be here. I think, again, I applaud the church for putting on this type of an event. It's important. It's incredibly important for us as people to continue to recognize the state of where we are. I love the topic. I'm glad that is my topic, the state of Black America, Black Arkansas, Black Little Rock, whatever we want to call it. But I think it's important that we continue to have these discussions because we are in a good place overall, but we're not where we should and need to be. And I think the more that we discuss and talk amongst ourselves, share in particular with our young folks, the things that we have overcome and the things that still are before us, that we can help them learn the best way to make it through this place we call America. So, again, I do apologize for this little dog. I'm going to catch him in a minute, and we're going to lock him up.
Thank you. So to get us started, We're going to kick off with a conversation about a very hot topic that's been around for over 30 years: diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. Make sure you put the letters in that order, not the other order. There must be D, E, then I. And I am just so excited to start that conversation with Miss LaTricia Hill-Chandler with the Great Southern Bank Corp, and she is located in Northwest Arkansas. She has such a robust and dynamic background. I am not going to attempt to summarize it. I'm going to let LaTricia introduce herself in her own way, and then we will kick off our conversation.
Good. Thank you, Martie. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Dewana. And thank you, New Calvary Temple Kojic Church. This is a great honor to be here to talk to you during Black History Month. My daughter and I call us TikTok famous because we just recently, last year, we did a series in February where we highlighted a couple of Black businesses on TikTok. We picked it up and decided to do it again here this month, and we are highlighting a online company called LaTricia's Flavored Perkles. You heard me. LaTricia's Flavored Perkles. So you should Google her. It's a young African-American woman who sends out just flavored pickles. And so we do a review. It's kind of funny. And we get people started about that. So I digress. I'm sorry, because we just did our session today. But as Martie said, I'm LaTricia. I am the Chief DEI Officer for Southern Bank Corp. I've been there. In June will be 2 years already. It went by really fast. And I'm sure most of you know Darren Williams. If not Darren Williams, you know Southern Bank Corp. And so we are in that Arkansas, Little Rock community and the Mississippi Delta. And we focus as a CDFI, or Community Development Financial Institution. We really focus on serving the underserved communities in those areas. And so this DEI role is new to the bank, but it is not new to the mission of the bank. Prior to that, I was DEI officer for Arvest Bank. Prior to that, I was the senior manager, strategy manager at Walmart, which is what got me back to Arkansas, because I'm originally from LA. No, not LA as in California, LA as in Lower Arkansas. Magnolia is my home. And so it feels good to be back in Arkansas for the past 8 years. And so I am just delighted to be here to talk about my career, but my profession, but also my passion in being inclusive to all communities.
Now you understand why I let her introduce herself. I would have been very dry and just reading it off a piece of paper, but I knew I've had the pleasure of seeing her in action. So I knew she would do a much better job in welcoming and bringing herself into the conversation. So when we hear DEI, it's used in a lot of different ways. So let's start with the leveling of what we're talking about and then take this subject further. So DEI works best together. They're not standalone things that operate in isolation. They work best when they are together. So when we think about diversity, it's all of the different things that make us us, right? Our age, our race, our ethnicity, our height, our education, where you grew up from, what neighbor you're in, the things that you like. It's all of those different aspects that make us who we are. When we talk about equity, it is providing people with the things that they need to survive and thrive. Whatever those things are, to survive and thrive. And we're going to get into the difference between equity and equality and why that matters in a little bit. And then we talk about inclusion. So sure, you can see all of these different aspects about me. You can say, oh yeah, I share that value of equity, but unless I am included in the conversation, unless I am included in the space, all of these factors are not really beneficial, right? I like to think of Charlie Brown. Everybody's seen that there's so many different images. So there's one where you see kids dancing. Who's not in the room? Was everybody included and invited to the dance? Or some people left out? or the one that I really, really love is the Thanksgiving or the dinner picture, where all of one group, most of the characters on one side of the table, and poor little Franklin is sitting on the other. Was he truly included? So when we think about DEI, there's so many aspects of it. There's so many nuances of it and application. But for tonight's purposes, I want to kind of lean into what it means for the workplace, the economy, and our communities when we talk about DEI and application. So there's so many different, the vocabulary around DEI keeps changing and evolving, and we keep adding new words and new letters, and DEI is just scratching the surface of the alphabet. And it's under attack in a variety of ways in our society. And oftentimes you will hear businesses say DEI is good business, is good for business. But what does that actually mean? So from your perspective, how does DEI improve the bottom line of a business, and how does it enhance our communities?
Yeah, thanks, Martie, for that question. As I was thinking about that, as you were talking, DEI is under attack for so many reasons. I think it's under attack because people are they're miseducated on what it really is. People are taking it and attacking it to things like critical race theory, right? People are taking it and attacking it to the Black agenda for what that means. But to your question, what it really means in a business setting, and in my opinion, how crucial it is for organizations and business successes through a number of reasons. But let's talk about a couple of them. One is when you have DEI in your organizations, diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's really about one thing of building talented teams. So making sure you engage people that work for you. Because we all know if you ain't happy at work, you ain't as productive as you could be. We know that the happier the employee is of working for anybody, the more engaged they are, the more they participate, the more you'll answer an email after 5 o'clock. Or you'll answer that phone call on Saturday morning. If you're not happy, you're going to look at that email and say, I'll get to that on Monday after 8 o'clock when I clock in. So it helps us to motivate our employees. It helps us to get the most talented people. And then it helps us to create a competitive advantage over those companies who don't have DEI. Another one is it helps us kind of look at these policies, these racial gaps that's so clear out there on all fronts. I know at Southern, we focus on 3 ways to build wealth, and that is so pertinent in this community, in our community, around home ownership, savings, and jobs or entrepreneurship. Those are 3 ways that we can build or bridge that wealth building gap through equity and through our organizations. And DEI is just the framework to do that. And then last but not least, it makes us money because statistics say that if you have DEI strategies in your companies, in your businesses, that means that I too am valued in that establishment. So if you see people, how many times do we go? I know for me, I'm going to speak for me, Martie. I'm not going to speak for everybody on the call, but I know for me, if I feel like I'm welcomed at a place of business, I'm going to keep going back there. If I feel like I'm represented in that company, I'm going to keep going back there. I can't tell you how many times. I've been doing DEI work, y'all, for almost 30 years. And I can't tell you how many times I will literally get ready to go buy something or go somewhere. And if it ain't nobody in there that look like me, I don't go. I just don't go. So I think that having diverse representation, albeit women, albeit young people, albeit Black people, Hispanic people, people with disabilities, all types of people, the more representation you have in an organization, the more people are going to be inclusive of that organization. Because then they say, okay, they know what I need. They got somebody representing me in this company. So those are 3 ways that I think DE&I touch that bottom line of any organization.
So thank you for that. And it made me think about a statistic that I saw a while ago when trying to participate in the DEI initiative with a different company, was that if everybody in the room looks the same, acts the same, has the same background, then no new ideas come forward.
Absolutely.
All you get is reaffirming the exact same thing.
That's exactly.
So no innovation happens.
Nope.
Unless there's diverse people around the room.
Yeah.
And our country composition is changing.
It is.
Whether some people like it or not, it is what it is. Yeah. And with that, there has to be more intentionality, which brings us into more inclusion, because if you're going to stay in business, green is being distributed. Green dollars are being distributed among all of the various people. And so you really are going to need to tap into more broader audiences. And the Black community, I mean, our spending power is several trillion a year anyway in this country, whether we realize it or not. We have a lot of spending buying power. So then the DEI advantage for the companies who figure it out first. Yep. Bring all of the other ones along sooner or later, kicking and screaming. But the ones who will be most successful at are the ones who really get in and are intentional and are not shaken by the current political whims in some places, but instead double down and say, this is important to us because it is good business.
Yep.
Which brings me to equity versus equality. So for so many years, especially in law, we've heard about equality. We want to treat people equally. We want to treat people equally. And I totally understand the premise and guideline. I have been in banking for 30 years, right? And we're constantly talking about we must treat people equally. We have tests for it. There are secret shoppers for it. There's all these different laws around making sure that people are being treated equally. The problem or the gap with just focusing on equality is we're not all starting from the same place. So if we're not starting all at the same place and I'm treating everybody equally, we're still not going to have equal access and opportunity. And LaTricia started. LaTricia, I am determined to add an additional vowel to your name.
I heard it that way too.
You started us on that journey. So when we're talking about equity versus equality, what are we talking about?
You know, equity versus equality, so many people think it's the same thing, Martie, and just as you explained it, it is not. So I'm going to tell you what the definition is, and then I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you a little visual. So equality says, just as you said, that everybody gets the ladder, okay? Everybody gets the ladder to pick the apple off the tree. But equity says, I'm still too short for the ladder to reach the apple on the tree. So I need a box on top of the ladder to pick the apple off the tree. So equality basically says you get the same resources, everybody is equal in getting what they need. Or everybody is equal in getting everything, okay, that they need. But equity says, but I'm going to make a little provision to get exactly what I need. So back to that scenario, if you can imagine 3 people on the chair, one happens to be 6'2", on a ladder to pick the apple from the tree. One happens to be 6'2", one happens to be 5'7", and one happens to be 4'11". And the tree happens to be 6'3", let's say 6'5". The person on the ladder that's 6'2" can automatically get on the ladder and reach it. Actually, they don't really need the ladder, but because we're being fair and giving everybody the same ladder, we just gonna give them one anyway. And then the one who is 5'7", who needs it, can step up 2 or 3 feet on the ladder, 2 or 3 inches on the ladder, and reach the apple and able to pull the apple down. But little old cousin who is 4'11", that the ladder don't even matter that they got it because they still can't reach it. That means they're marginalized, they're underserved, they're underrepresented, and so they don't have an equitable shot at getting the apple. So in order to provide equity to our cousin that's 4'11" over here, in addition to giving them the ladder, we're going to also give them either a taller ladder or something else in addition to, so that he can or she can reach the apple from the tree. And so, yes, we love equality. We think, yes, everybody should get it. But like you said, Martie, not everybody is starting off. In this case, not everybody is 6'2". So not everybody is starting with a fair shot. So that's how we define kind of equity and equality.
Thank you for that. And so most people will affirm their support of equality in this country as a value that we hold.
Yes.
You know, we want to be treated equally. We want to be treated equally. But you creep and you say equity. You know, I had an extensive conversation with a member of a different community, and they kept talking. And I said, "Well, what you're talking, your E is equality. You're talking about diversity, equality, and you're not talking about equity and inclusion." Because then the next part of her sentence was, "Well, that sounds like, it feels like quotas." So that sounds like now all of a sudden I got to hire, or I got to do this, and I got to have this certain number of this group or that group. So then we get into checkboxing. There's so many slides and all of that, which is absolutely the antithesis to how DEI works when it is working well. Can you speak to that aspect or thoughts on the fear that we're talking about implementing quotas?
Yeah, so when we start to talk about belonging, because that's exactly what that is, when people start to say, no, you're talking about quote, no, belonging, as you mentioned before, when diversity is talking about representation and encouraging differences in backgrounds and beliefs. Equity is talking about fairness and what that looks like for that everybody has the opportunity with the resources they need. And then inclusion is talking about being valued and respected. Now when people start talking about checking the box and quotas, now we're starting to talk about belonging, because belonging is the perception of acceptance. That I feel like I belong, that I feel like I'm valued, that I feel like I'm being heard or seen. And so when people bring that up to me, I go, no, I just that's just not an aspect of belonging. And if we're going to be full circle out inclusive, I got to also feel like that I can reach that apple, right? So I think that's the misnomer that people tend to have. And again, when we're talking about that wealth gap between people around those three areas alone, Martie, home ownership, jobs or entrepreneurship, and savings, statistics show that as a community, we are so far behind the 8 ball in those areas of building wealth. Because if people got jobs or their own businesses, own their own businesses, or if they have homes, or if they have a nice savings, a nice job to give them a nice savings, or equity in their home, then we can build wealth. And I think that's part of what we're missing as we start to talk about how to build wealth.
Absolutely. Belonging is so important. We've had great strides and progress through legislation primarily, right, to get us access to all different types of fields of endeavor and careers and opportunities. And that is great. But once you get there and you get in that place, the sense of I belong here, I'm accepted here, my voice is valued, my presence is not perceived as a threat, that I have an opportunity like everyone else to thrive. I knew that dog was going to, I knew it. Would actually have an opportunity to thrive. We've got a lot of work to do there because, as you mentioned earlier about a happy worker, there's a cost to individuals not feeling like they belong. Companies lose money when the employees don't feel like they belong. They're less productive. They call in sick more. They have more unplanned PTO, and they are constantly looking for another job. So churn is also at play as well. So the DEIB is what we call it at our bank. We have doubled down on our investments at Cadence Bank on our DEV initiative. And very excited about that when you're starting to see some companies running away.
Oh, yeah.
Because they are now fearful of this. But we realize that is the future. And you got to start planning for the future today in order to not be completely left behind. Now, I don't want to allow the other two panelists to not have an opportunity to jump in. I just wanted to make sure Black History Month, even though Women's History Month is coming up, I still got to do ladies first, like Queen Latifah, in the song. On the screen, I want to give an opportunity for our state senator, Fred Love, to chime in if he would, because I could see you a few times. It was like, oh, I want to get in on that. I want to get in on that. So feel free to chime in. Your thoughts on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Well, good evening, everyone. And first of all, to New Calvary, thank you for hosting this panel, and to Sister Lindsay, thank you for the invitation. Just a few things. I've been able to serve you all for the last 14 years now in the Arkansas legislature, 12 being in the House, and then I'm entering my second year in the Senate. So I've been able to actually observe this DEI fight firsthand. And so a few things that I want to say. Number one is that I take a little bit different view of the DEI, and I would say that I don't feel like all people are misinformed. I feel that they're intentional on what they're trying to do. I truly do. There's been too many times where we have had the conversation of how certain legislation and certain things are going to detrimentally impact the African American community specifically, and people still pass the law, even though we know that the prison reform is going to be detrimental, even though we know the Arkansas Learns Act is going to be detrimental, even though I remember several years ago, me and Joyce Elliott, we tried to pass what we call racial impact legislation, so that we can look at the racial impact of whatever legislation that we're passing. And so I would say that, and I know that not all people are misinformed. I think some people are misinformed, but I think some people are intentional in what they're trying to do, to say, hey, we don't want to see DEI move forward, because they know that progress is going to open the floodgates for a lot of other things. And then the second thing I want to say is this: is that with that same intentionality, is that there is an assumption that job belongs to you, and that job doesn't belong to that person. And when people begin to talk about affirmative action and talk about DEI, they want to automatically say or assume that African American or that Hispanic person wasn't qualified, but since you gave them this special treatment. No, it just gave them the opportunity to say, hey, listen, I'm here, let me have a shot. And so there is an assumption that all of a sudden somebody white is qualified, they're disqualified without question. And that somebody black or somebody that is of another ethnicity has to have something special, something that we have to do in order, instead of just saying, this is just an opportunity, the door is open. So I think when we look at DEI, I mean, we fought, and Scott can chime in on this, we fought SB 71 this year to keep DEI, and it's constantly, we see an erosion of all the laws that were set in place to actually try to balance the playing field. We see an erosion within the last 4 years. It's just a quick decline. It's not even a gradual. It used to be gradual. Now it's just like, hey, we taking this back. And so that's what I would like to add to DEI, in that, we need to be more mindful of when it comes to linking the dots. So if we're going to protect DEI, we have to actually participate in the process of voting to actually ensure that our interests are protected. So, and then I'll let Judge Griffin comment on, because I know the judge has a lot to say.
Judge, you're still on mute. There you go.
Thank you very much, Sister Martie. Thank you, Senator. And I want to thank Pastor Hopson and New Calvary and Sister Lindsay for the opportunity to be part of this engaging conversation. I'm not only the oldest member of this panel. It's interesting that you're talking about DEI. In 1975, which is probably older than most of the folks in the panel, I was doing what you now call DEI work for the United States Army. I am a 1975 graduate of the Defense Race Relations Institute, which is now known as Defense Equal Opportunity Management Institute, which was established by the Department of Defense to ensure what you call now DEI would happen in the military. Because recall, the United States military was the first desegregated branch of the U.S. federal government, and before corporate America began including people of color and men, specifically males of color, the military was doing so, and the United States military was including women in leadership before corporate America was. And so I was doing that kind of work in the military in 1975, 1976. DEI, as has been mentioned, involves diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I think of it a little bit different. Equity, and I help you understand, I consult in this area. Equity is what you do in a family. If you have children in a family, you don't divide everything in the family equally per children based on the number of children you have by heads. Because you recognize that every child has his or her special strength and his or her special need. And you apportion resources to the children based upon his or her need, so that each child receives what he or she needs because they are an integral part of the family. That's where the inclusion comes. You have the diversity. Each child is different. You have the inclusion. Each child is included, but you have equity because each child receives what he or she needs in order for he or she to become what they need to be. So if you have a child who has a special need in learning, you provide more resources to that child. If you have a child who has a special aptitude, you provide that child special resources to help enhance that child's aptitude. But you don't give every child music lessons because one child has music lessons. One child may need music lessons. One child may need dance lessons. One child may need science and technology. But you want to make sure each child has what he or she needs in order for he or she to be what they will become. Equity is what that's saying. And so you don't decide, okay, I got $30, I'm going to give $10 a piece per child. No. Because if you have a child who needs $20 worth of medical care, you're not going to give the child $10. Because that would be not only it would be equal, but it would be fundamentally unfair. And so we understand that. I agree with Senator Love. Let's not be cute about this. This society has never valued equity. It has always valued white preference, and specifically white male preference. I mean, let's just call it what it is. This child was established, this society was established to benefit white male property owners, white male men with wealth, white men with wealth. It was possible at one time to only be a voter if you were white and a landowner. So all white men and no white women were not considered voter eligible. Only white men who had property and no white woman, no matter how much property she had, could vote. And so that's the issue of how this society has been built up. We should also understand that when we talk about equity, you cannot discuss equity without talking about people having undeserved privileges and people having undeserved burdens. If a child is born of color, he or she has undeserved burdens as a result of transgenerational injustice, systemic injustice. A child who is born of privilege, who is white, has undeserved privilege. So to say that a child born to the Stevens family and a child born to the Lindsay family, both born in Pulaski County, are equal or have equity is not fair. They're both born in the same county, but one is born to the family of a billionaire, transgenerational billionaires, whose ancestors have never been enslaved. And the other is born to a family of people who have worked to become entrepreneurs after having come out of the experience of enslavement. And so I think we have to understand that also. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is, in order to talk about DEI, we must understand the relationship between DEI and a 5-letter word called power. Because what DEI ultimately is about is who controls and who has access to earning power, voting power, political power. And the access to power has always been threefold. First of all, who has the power to decide, who has the power to reward, and who has the power to punish. And in all three instances, the scales have been off balance. And so we have to, it is incumbent on us, if we're talking about the state of Black America, to admit that when it comes to wealth, access to wealth, access to the power of wealth, access to the capital has always been unfair. Where do you get capital? Capital is, first of all, from the benefit of your labor. If you have 246 years of stolen labor that empowers another group, and you've not only deprived that, you have transgenerational poverty that is inherited. And you also have to work harder to get out of that. But beyond that, I'm about to stop because I'm boring you. Beyond that, we have to understand that the transgenerational deficits associated with the transgenerational deprivations have prospected complications and implications. Your and my grandchildren will be disproportionately less wealthy because their grandparents and great-grandparents did not have the capacity to amass capital. You get capital from labor, you get capital from land. If you don't have the money to bring your money, you can't buy land. If you buy land, but you can't buy land on an equal kind of, if your land is redlined, and you're forced to buy land that is lower valued, and then for your resale value is lower, you pass it over. And if you have to spend more money on your health and on feeding yourself proportionally, because you're earning less money and the prices are higher when you shop, you have less money discretionary to save. Therefore, you cannot amass wealth to save to buy a house, to send your children to college. It becomes a cascading situation. And if we don't talk about this from this perspective, the DEI conversation becomes disjointed. That's why Senator Sullivan's SB 71 was brain dead, quite frankly. And the reason I say is because Senator Sullivan is younger than I am, okay? He has never known discrimination. When has a white man in the South been discriminated against? How have Black people and women disadvantaged white men in the South from getting a job or getting a business or getting elected office? And so that is the issue. The only place where we've been able to get anything is in Black church Black communities. And one of the byproducts of integration was that our Black schools, where we had Black teachers who were encouraging Black students of all skills sets and recognizing them as learners before there was anything called Head Start, were disempowered. Our Black teachers were disempowered. I'm not trying to go back to segregation. Don't get me wrong. I'm simply saying, when you don't understand the history of DEI and the issue of equity, you forget, we forget. And it is intentional that people want us to forget. People want us not to remember because they do not want us to remind them what they know will make a difference in all our future. I rest.
I knew I was in trouble when I gave Judge Griffin the mic, but that was so rich, and there's so we could spend the next 2 hours just unpacking all the gems that he just shared in that moment.
Now, Pastor, I apologize, Pastor. I'm a preacher, and I went long, Pastor. I apologize. I took my text, and I did not go to my seating time.
You were great, but you actually did an amazing job of connecting and giving me the throw the mic over to Scott from the Urban League perspective, because you've taken DEI and you have done what I hope would happen, and you've embedded it into society. So we started off with the language framework, gone through some definitions and some examples of how that plays out. And then State Senator came along and said, let me bring in government and politics, which in policies, public policy is central to a lot of this. It's attitudes and public policy. And Dr. King fundamentally understood the importance of public policy. And he was working on that next part, but we still got to pick up that torch. And with that, it feels like an amazing opportunity to welcome Scott into the conversation from the Urban League perspective as we talk about and go deeper in our conversation about the state of our Black community, whether we're talking about Little Rock, Pulaski County, Arkansas, the South, or America, because these tentacles, as the judge just so eloquently pointed out, play out in a way that directly connects to DEI. Our laws, our practices, the conversation, the language, the attitudes, all of it is playing out in our numbers and in our reality. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Scott.
All right, thank you, Martie. I appreciate it, and I agree with Judge Griffin. We could just drop the mic in your lap, and you could really kind of frame up very quickly what we're seeing. Can everyone hear me? I see someone pointing. You can hear me? Okay, great, fantastic. So, without any introductions, as Martie said, I'm the current CEO of the Urban League of the state of Arkansas. I came in that role as a board member who was supposed to be an interim place filler when we had a previous CEO take on a fantastic opportunity that was 3.5 years later. And I love what I do every day because it puts me in a space that's near and dear to my heart, that's very near and dear, as Griffin would know, to my parents' heart. This is my calling. This is my calling. I stay angry every day. And then I come home and have a good time, especially my 6-pound dog. But let me tell you something. I'm going to walk you through the 2024 State of Black America report from the Urban League, National Urban League. If you haven't seen this, just shoot me a note. I'll send it to you. It's a fantastic document. Now, if you go back through history, National Urban League does a State of Black America report every year. And usually, it's a nice document. It, talks about our problems in society, but it usually has some nice stuff. Let me tell you something. This right here is my kind of writing because it ain't nothing but hell. It is telling us where we are right now in these United States of America. Let me talk about the first point. The rise in violent hate crimes across America. I mean, we have seen things that I don't think any of us could have ever imagined go on in the last few years. Since 2021, we've had over 44% increase in hate crimes, but a 22% decrease in police reporting of such. Do they have vision problems? They got hearing problems? What kind of? I think they got a mind problem. That's what we've seen. Let's talk about the next point we hit on. And I'm going to come back to each panelist and we'll delve into this and talk about it, in particular here in Arkansas. The threats within education. Little kids trying to go to school, learn to read, write, and arithmetic, as my daddy would say. We got an education system that has gone into hyper overdrive to make sure folk that look like me and everybody else I see on the screen right now, maybe folks that don't look like us, if you don't look like us, that's good. I'm glad you're here. Because it's an absolute mess. On a weekly basis, I get in my truck that has over 300,000 miles on it, and I cruise the Delta. I go to Helena, Blythe, Osceola, Lee County, Marvel, you name it, I've been all of them. And I'm talking to superintendents that are talking about the issues they're seeing with kids. Now, we got post-COVID issues, right? You know, we got some mental health issues that are going on that the Urban League is involved with. But we also have an active society that's trying to take away one of the most basic and fundamental things that we as humans should be doing. Now, they did this back in slavery. They didn't want us to learn nothing. And it kind of seems like they don't want us to learn nothing now. CRT, a tax on library. When have you seen a librarian need to be locked up? A librarian, a quiet, docile person, typically one who probably has a pet rabbit at best, threatened to be locked up because somebody wants to come in and challenge something in a book that somebody told them to challenge because they don't even know what the hell they read. I remember a few weeks ago, the Urban League, we went out and we visited all 17 of the Central Arkansas Library Systems branches, all 17. Sherwood, Perryville, over there close to Dunbar, Fletcher. We went to all of them, John Barrow. And as we talked to the librarians, they talked about some of these clowns that walked up in there talking about, hey, you got this book? You got that book? Literally. Now, most of them walked in there looking like this. That's the book I'm looking for. They don't know what they're talking about. They got a script from somebody from Florida. And so, and if you don't know about that, there was 11 folks in this silly group that really started challenging our books, the writings that are there. And most of these books for people like Maya Angelou, Fred Love wrote a book. They challenged his book. You know, he's writing about tricycles. They challenged that simply because of what he looked like. So, we got to talk to one of the, I never forget, it was the librarian over in Sherwood, a little Jewish woman. She was cool as a pain. She said, this woman came in and said, you got this book? She goes, yes, we have it. Would you like to get me a copy of it? And they said, no, I couldn't look at that filth. I don't want to see that filth. She read another book, same thing. I don't want to see that book. I don't want to see that. So after about the fourth or fifth book, this woman was reading off the list, and she got off Fox News and said, let me help you out. Since you're looking for books with bad stuff, bad information, things that you should be concerned about, things that, we ought to work, because I'm hearing your theme here that in your estimation that these books are bad because they're my black folks. But anyway, she said, let me get you the worst book we got. Lake got nervous. She said, that might hurt my feelings. I might get corrupted. Oh, no. You need to see this book. You know what book she came back with, don't you? The Bible. Woman walked up out of there. That's education. That's what we see in the state of America. State of America. You call it black man, state of America. Because guess what? What they do to try to hurt black folks don't do nothing but hurt them too. All right. The next step that we talked about, next point, the threat within our political system. Whoever in their right mind thought you would see a president say, I ain't going nowhere. Wasn't that a song? Come on, LaTricia, out there, you know the song. Go on and sing it for me. He said, I ain't leaving. It's in my house. And then he called several thousand of his crazy friends to come up and climb up and break windows and defecate in the state capitol, and even got a little girl shot. They ain't trying to sue. She might as well go home. I think she did go home. Anyway, did you ever in your right craziest mind ever think you would see a zoo at the state capitol of nice tourists who just came for a simple visit? At least that's what they told us. The threat within our political system. Hate within law enforcement and the military. I thought we got through that. I thought when Rodney King got his tail beat on that highway back in 92, 95, that Hyundai, that Johnny Cochran came in and defended OJ, and we saw all the trials and exposure of all kind of good stuff. And even recently we saw a man get killed with a boot on his neck. And we still see, even in the last few months, this kind of crap with the folks that are supposed to protect us. That's the state of Black America, y'all. That's the state of America. This ain't the state of Black America. State of America. And here we are right now, 2024. We got some hold on a sec. Dude that looks like that. You see that right there? What color is that? We got this orange dude running around talking about that because he had a little old title called President of these here United States, that he was immune from the law. Thank God, Judge, that we had some folks that had enough sense to say, go on, get up out of here. Because, yes, you are not above the law. So, that's where we are right now. And like I said, we could hit any of these topics. And these are the things that we are dealing with every single day in our country. I certainly the state of Black America. Now, it's not all bad. I mean, I got some more stats right here. I'm a stats cat. This shows that the median household wealth of Black folks has gone up quite a bit. It's like $57,000. White folks is $285,000. So that's went up too. So, there's some good news there, but it's still problematic. That gap is huge. So what do we do? I mean, what do we do at this point? As folks that obviously care about where we are, why this topic is important. As we look at the shortest month of the year, and we call it Black History Month. Let me say that again. As we look at the shortest month of the year, we call it Black History Month. I'm with Martie. I celebrate 365. So, these 28 little old days, I can't wait for us to get through it. Because, we have an overemphasis in really, great time of folks showing up and services, folks that ain't never seen our places before. They want to come and buy black. If I had to depend on people buying black for 28 days out of 365, I wouldn't even have this phone here to talk to y'all on. So, these are the things that I think we really have to pay attention to. These are the things that we have got to talk to our young folks about. These are the things that we need them to understand, that when they decide to go block a freeway, which is fine, but you got a reason that you're blocking that damn freeway. You're not just out there because I'm protesting. Well, why are you out there? Rosa Parks didn't just get on that bus and decide she was tired. Man, they planned that. They had about 15 different women that fit profile and had the ability to deal with the crap that she was going to have when she walked in that police station, even though we know she walked in the front door, walked out back, got the Cadillac, went on home. So, we have to continue to recognize what we call as the state of Black America. It's a challenging place. Now, when Martie was talking a moment ago, I love the topic, and when you all start talking about how we have done well. In fact, can you imagine some folks that could have been held back for over 400 years trying to figure out how to get to the grocery store, how to own a business, how to take a trip around the world, fly their own plane around the world? We're a fabulous people. The fact that we can even assimilate and pretend like things don't matter that really do matter sometimes to us says just how amazing Black folks are. So state of Black America, in my opinion, is amazing because we can do what some of them don't want us to do in spite of. But I think it's incredibly important. The more I do this Urban League thing, and if any of y'all know me, running a nonprofit is like, shoot, no-legged man trying to win a jumping contest for me. I'm an entrepreneur. I like businesses. I don't like a whole lot of thought about and thinking about. It's black or white to me. It ain't gray. But I'm going to tell you one thing. One thing I do know, I've learned in this urban league role, is that there's a whole lot of gray. And the gray is where people like to create confusion. It's black and white. It really is. It's either wrong or it's right. But we like to in this society now, operate in this gray space. So, I think that's the thing that we have to, that's one of the things that I'm blessed to do in this role. Those are young folks. And that's what I'm going to ask each and every one of you to do, is to find a young person. If it's just one, if it's 5, if it's 10, if it's 20, sit them down, pull them aside. Give some level of direction because they're struggling. I can tell you this now. We work with them. We work with the college-educated ones, the MBA-educated ones, the JD-educated ones, the business-owned ones, the C-suite ones. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of things that we see is a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion, a lot of lack of history, not really understanding who they are, where they came from, who their ancestors are, what went on to get them where they are. And the risk we have there is that we got some folks that look like this, that like somebody that look like this. I can't even say that man's name. To want to believe that you're less than, that you don't matter. But you gotta know, you come from a line of folk that less than 2 generations back were still in slavery. As Martie reminds me, it was 1972 or 4? Before we was truly free, because up until then, 77, like, you could still be denied a loan for a house because you're black. So we ain't been free that long, y'all. We really ain't been free that long. And so I think that's what we got to do. I think that's the most important thing. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to talk about in terms of the state of Black America, other than just look around, pay attention, listen to what you hear on the news, listen to the undercurrent of it. I was watching the news this morning, and you got a group of cats up there in D.C. that sat down and wrote a bill about how we're going to deal with this border. And the border is a hot mess. But the celebration day is that, look, if you got that many people trying to come up with your country, that you ought to be happy. You ought to be happy about that. It's like, we must have something they want, right? But these cats wrote a bipartisan bill. They put it out there in front and then voted it down. These are our leaders. So, when we sit there and talk to our young folks, and they say, well, I ain't want to be part of this process, and my vote don't matter, this, that, and other. Ask a few politicians. Fred Love, tell me about it. How many of them that you know that came and said, man, I won my seat by 2 votes. I lost my seat by 1 vote. Several of them. These are the things that we got to impart. They don't have to, they don't have to be experts in anything. Just get involved. One of the things I always say to our group there at the Urban League is, let me tell you why you vote. If there are 50 cats and 50 dogs in a ring, and somebody comes and say, okay, y'all, we got to figure out what we're going to eat. And 70 of the dogs vote, and 20 of the cats vote. Guess what they're going to be eating? Dog food. You're going to have some mad cats up in there, right? Some of them probably have indigestion, be sick to that dog food, this, that, and other. But now, if all of them vote, most likely what they're going to say, well, dang, we got a tie. And somebody they're going to say, well, let's get the straw and pull it. Or one of them going to get smart and say, well, shoot, we got some money. We'll buy 1 bag of dog food, 1 bag of cat food. Everybody can be happy. So, this stuff ain't rocket science. When I look at, like I said, the state of Black America, particularly the report that we put out from the National Urban League, I want you all to read that because it's hot. I mean, there's nothing nice in there about it. There's no cute things. It tells it like it is. It lays out the 5 points I just read to you. These are the things in 2022, 23 that we dealt with. An idiot that wouldn't leave the White House. A education system that's trying its way best to take us back to a point where our kids get frustrated and drop out. Read the LEARNS Act. I've read all 145 pages of it. Is there some good stuff in there? Damn straight. Should a 3rd grader should be able to read at 3rd grade level? Absolutely. Do our kids sometimes develop in a different way than some of their kids? Absolutely. But if we're not involved with the decisions, the policies, the procedures, the things that are put in place, then they're not going to work. They're not going to work for us. You know, we got a $400 million Ritz-Carlton that's being put on the drawing board to be built somewhere. We got cities and communities buying and say, hey, come build this Ritz-Carlton in my community, the jail. Isn't that pathetic? When small towns and communities are excited about potentially getting a jail because it'll bring jobs. We got to get involved, folks. So, with all that, LaTricia, I'm going to pick on you. What do you think about the state of Black America?
What you said, what Judge Griffin said, what Senator said, all together.
I am reading. I suffer from a reading addiction. I'm reading a book titled "I Write What I Like" by Steve Biko. By Steve Biko. And right. Steve Biko.
I think we may be on mute. Can someone? Yeah, looks like we may be on mute.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Judge.
Okay. Let me lower my hand.
Okay, now I can hear you. Okay.
Steve Biko had a quote that I think is important for us to remember. One of the quotes that I like was that the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I think we talk about the state of Black America is we have to talk about the state of Black consciousness. Are we aware of who we are and where we come from and what our responsibilities are as humans, as people created by a creator with a destiny, something beyond what the people who we have called oppressors have? Because as long as we have been around, our people have always recognized that our condition, our state could not be defined based on what people who oppressed us thought about us or did to us. Even in religion, we took the same Bible they use as a software for oppression, and we made it as a roadmap for liberation. And if we're not careful, we will allow ourselves to have our minds and our thinking defined by the thinking of the oppressors. That's one reason why I tell people, listen, be careful what you read, be careful who you listen to, and be careful who you associate with.
That's right.
Because quite frankly, if you get your reading material from the oppressors, if you find your news from the oppressors, if you get your basis from the oppressors, and your faith system has been corrupted by the oppressors, and you have not based your faith upon the faith of the liberators. If Martin Luther King is not as important to you, if Henry Howland, if Frederick Douglass is not more important to you than John Hagee and John MacArthur and Billy Graham, then you miss something. Because quite frankly, these are the kinds of things that affect how we think. We are now in an election season where people are talking about two white men, both of whom are over 70 years old. And nobody is talking about a black man who has a PhD, who has done liberational work. Nobody talks about Cornel West. Now, I'm old enough to remember when folks had a saying that white ice was colder than black ice.
It's not.
In 2024, I am watching black folks argue about which of two white men ought to be president of the United States when both of them have a record that has been dysfunctional. the crime bill of 1994 that began mass incarceration was authored by Joseph R. Biden. Hello?
Yep.
We're seeing 27,000 people in Gaza have been killed. 200 children a day are being killed in Gaza by Joseph R. That's 200 George Floyds of babies.
That's right.
Every day. And we're going to actually have a conversation about black folks who have been crucified about voting for that guy. When you got a black man who has been pro-Palestinian, pro-equal rights for women, pro-LGBTQ, anti-war, anti-imperialism, and anti-poverty. And so if I go back to Steve Biko, the most potent weapon in the mind of oppressors is in the hand of oppressors is the mind of oppressed. If black people who have the power to decide whether or not Joe Biden is elected go to the polls and vote for Joe Biden, based on what we know, without asking ourselves, what is it more we're going to get from Joe Biden that we've already gotten? We are playing the colonized game. Our colonized minds. I'm not saying go vote for Cornel West because he's black. I'm just saying don't disqualify him because he ain't white.
Right. You know, Judge, here's one of my other. I'm a simple person. I say I'm slightly on the spectrum. I really ain't. I'm pretty smart, pretty brilliant, got a whole bunch of degrees. But let me tell you something. I'm simple in the way I operate. Here's what I say all the time. If you drive in your car, right, and you look down on the floor, if you look at mine, it's going to be all kind of trash and french fries and crap like that. But if you look down on your floor and there's 14 cents laying on the floor, you going to pick it up. Tell the truth. Probably not. Right? Now, you ain't going to take that seatbelt off. You're not going to bend down. Now, you drop that cell phone, you're going to run over everybody on the freeway and kill them all getting that cell phone. But that 14 cents that's down there, it's probably been down there for 6, 7, 8 months. You know, a dime, a nickel, a dime and 4 pennies. You ain't going to pick it up. Let's just say dime. Let's say 50. Black folks is 13.6% of the United States of America. We just a little bit under 14%. So you ain't going to pick it up because it ain't that big of a deal. It really ain't. We can argue about it all day long. But let me tell you this much right here. You know, I used to be able to go to McDonald's and get me a McDouble for 99 cents, and then they charged me taxes 106. That ain't the case no more. They like $5. But back in the day, when I would pull up to that drive-thru to get that dollar, and if anybody know me, that's all I eat. Marty tell you, don't go to McDonald's with me. You better get off that value meal. Stay on it with me. But anyway, that McDouble was $1. And quite often, I'd have about 85, 86 cents in my pocket. I reached down and got that 14. See, that's level. That's what we got to learn. Is that when you don't have the capacity to do 100%, you figure out what to do with your 14 cents. And that's one of the things that we've got to make sure our young folks understand. You know, I hear a lot of them talking about we did this, we did that. Now, yeah, you're right. In Atlanta, man, we is everywhere. Little Rock, what, we 48%, 47% black. Little Rock, nice blackity black town. I like Little Rock. You know, Texas, one of the craziest places on the planet, second largest black population in the U.S. Our third, it's right there with Florida. I think it's Texas, Florida, California, New York, Georgia. But for the most part, we 14%. So we got to understand the power of leverage. We got to understand the power of working with folks. I agree with you 100%. I ain't excited about none of these candidates for president. You dang straight. Biden got a track record that's garbage. I really think, you know, ain't nothing wrong with being 80. But sometimes 80 is old. The orange man is 77. They right there. They all up in age. So it's all about ability. But I ain't excited about any of them. But again, I think what we have to do, and we got to continue to teach our young folks, is that you do have to understand the power of leverage. You do have to be engaged. We can't win in this society by itself at 14%. Now, can we make an impact? Absolutely. Ask Hillary Clinton when she didn't fly over to South Carolina and visit with our nice friend there. She lost the election. She lost it that night. She didn't think it was important enough to go over there and get that leverage that could have pushed her over the edge. So I think that that's one of the things that we have to continue to do. When we look at our policies, when we get out there, when we are saying go vote, We're going to vote, tell people to go vote because they need to understand what's going on. Now, when a politician sees 14 cents and he needs or she needs to get to $1, guess what? That 14 cents matter. That's the argument I try to make with our young folks. I think we have to look at it because it's a little bit different positioning. It's the same argument, it's the same approach. Cornell West, you're absolutely right. Heck, we had the same thing right here in Arkansas. We had a candidate for governor who was a rocket scientist, a PhD. I mean, I talked to that guy for 5 minutes. And I'm just like, good Lord, I really am retarded. And look what we got. You know? So I think that we have to, but see, we can't give up. It's easy to get frustrated. It's easy. I hear young folks all the time when they look at it as that 14 pennies on the floor. And that's exactly what you're saying, Judge. When the oppressor wants to make you 14 pennies on the damn floor, you feel bad. But when you realize that, hey, I need to jump up on on that console, get in the wallet with that 86 cents and have a conversation and say, what we gonna eat? Because you can't eat without me and I can't eat without you. Then guess what? We might eat something that we can agree to. That's what we got to start doing, people. We got to really understand the power of leverage. Because with leverage, we can get somewhere. We can sit around the corner and have water cooler talk and be as mad as we want and complain about all the things that ain't right. And guess what? It's absolutely right. But at the end of the day, the only way we're going to move something is through that leverage, like using a wheelbarrow. Fred, I see you itching. I see you, Senator. I see you.
Well, I mean, for the sake of time, because I know that Ms. Lindsay said that we were going to just go for about an hour and 10 minutes. So here's the two things I would say. Because
you didn't say which hour and which 10 minutes, so let's keep on talking.
Okay. So here's a couple of things, because I talk to young people all the time about voting. And one thing that I do want to stress, that I always stress about voting is this, is that the government, people make it the illusion of creating all these laws and different things. The government's biggest function is taxation. And when they bring money in, they redistribute it out to communities. And if you're not at the table, then there's no one to say where they should redistribute. Now you're at somebody's mercy to say, hey, will you please do this for my community? So when I talk to young people, I talk to them about that. The leverage piece is something that is great that we need to talk about, because that is how you get things done. But one thing I want to caution us to is we have to know what to ask for. In my 14 years of being in the legislature, I will tell you, we haven't really had the conversation about what really do we need to be asking for, if there is something to ask for. But I'm also with Judge Griffin. Cornell West is not getting the traction in our community that he needs. And so when we begin to think, well, if we're not going to give it any merit, nobody else is going to give it any merit as well. So we really need to think about, well, our 14 pennies need to be over there with his, so that number one, it does make a statement.
That's right.
But number two is if he chooses by his own accord to say, well, I'm going to line up with somebody else, whatever, then people will know that our power is there. When people were upset at Obama, I mean, it broke out crazy. All black people voted for Obama, and it was like it's like, man, black people was like 75% of the United States, weren't they? And so we really need to understand our power. And when we don't understand our power, we can be taken for granted very easily. So it's just a couple of things that, we could have this conversation on and on, because now when you get into the politics and voting and everything, you get into my wheelhouse now. And I always talk about, all right, what are we asking for? What is it that we're going to get out of this? Because we surely can't just go and like, well, if we're going to talk about Joe Biden, well, Joe Biden, if you would do this, and if you would do that, or even not even asking for anything. So, I mean, I'm going to close my comments like that. But, Scott, you came in too hot, man. You came in hot, brother. Woo! That's all I want to say, man. But I mean, I think this is a conversation that we need to continue, not only throughout Black History, but throughout the year, because when we begin to talk about the conversation on reparations, because we're having all those conversations, and I'm like, all right, so where's our economic infrastructure? Because everybody wants to mention Dr. King, but we got to mention that piece of our economics, our economic infrastructure. What will we do with it right now? How will we invest it? What is there that we could keep the money into our community so that it will live on? I mean, so these are the conversations that we need to have. We got Southern Bancorp on the line. We got Cadence Bank on the line. I mean, like, these are, people talk about reparations, but they're not talking about how we keep the money in our community so it will cycle. And it will benefit not only our grandkids, but our kids' grandkids, and on and on and on. So, I mean, these are conversations that we need to continue, y'all. Because this was a great conversation. It's a kickoff. Sister Lindsay, thank you. But we need to continue this conversation.
Mr. Martin, LaTricia, can I ask a question? Could we, before we end, distinguish wealth from income? Because you bankers understand that there's a difference. Wealth is what you have after you get through paying your bills and your other necessary life expenses, and you have stuff that you pass on. So a house is an item of wealth. You can have a high salary and not have wealth. You just have spending power. Income is only about what you have the power to spend. Wealth is what you have the power to transmit. You have the power to leave wealth. You have the power to give wealth. You have the power to leverage wealth. You don't have that with income. And if we do not save, if we spend all we make, and we spend all we make to create wealth for other people who don't give us wealth, we remain very poor even though we have high income. Yes. So you can be as rich as you want to be and die a pauper because you spent all you made. And your children are poorer when you die than you were when they were born. On the other hand, if we learn how to, leverage, first of all, farmers know you don't eat everything you grow.
Eat the seeds.
You don't eat your seed corn. You keep some seed corn to plant for the next season.
That's right.
Because if you eat all you grow, you're gonna be looking at ground and not a crop for the next year.
That's right.
We have to teach that to our young people because I've seen folks with jewelry out the wazoo. They got the latest iPhone, and they are paying more for an apartment than they would have to pay for a house. Sister LaTricia? Sister Martie? Am I right?
All right. You are right, Judge.
And when it gets time for them to go borrow some money, they have no collateral. Therefore, they do not have any collateral to begin a business. Or what they do is they go borrow money at an exorbitant rate. So they have less money they can borrow to pour into the business. And they have to work harder to create profit in the business to pay off the money they borrowed. So they can't afford to pay folks they need to pay to make the business go. This is not check. this is not checkers, this is chess. This is chess. And if we are not careful, our oppressors want us to keep at the subsistence level, as opposed to at the production level. If we're not producing wealth, we are going to eat ourselves up. And so we're eating all we can. We're eating ourselves sick. Hello? Because the stuff we're eating is killing us faster. So we're paying more for the health issues. And we are passing on more stuff. Last thing I'm going to say. When the biggest sources of our Black ownership are funeral homes. Hello? And churches are the only folks go to when they until they get ready to die. And our churches are not producing, teaching, inculcating people to have liberated minds. I love Jesus, y'all. I love Jesus. But Jesus taught folks how to go and live abundantly. That's not prosperity gospel. That's knowing how to live so that you are a blessing to other people. If we're not doing that, we're creating a situation where our next generation will become the new enslaved people, because we'll be working harder for the oppressors, even though our grandparents worked hard to get us out of oppression. Sister Warner, I'm so sorry. I've been trying to keep myself quiet.
George, I already knew. I just didn't want to tell the pastor and the rest of the church that I wasn't going to be able to contain you all in an hour. I just said if they have to leave, they just will miss it. I'm just sorry. I appreciate you guys so very much. In closing, Sister Martie, would you like to close us out with your panel? I appreciate you all. This has been such a blessing. I knew this would be the panel to kick us off for our 2024 State of Black America or State of America. And again, I appreciate you all. Was there anything else that you guys needed to say in closing? Thank you again so very, very much. We appreciate you. Pastor Hopson, is in your hands.
No, I'm just grateful. I'm thank you, panelists, for coming and sharing with us. I knew when we had a preacher on, I knew it was going to run over all night. I just knew that. And you all did answer several of my questions, because I mean it to also see what I can do as a leader to enhance the betterment of our people. And I appreciate you all giving me that information. And I'll be also contacting, reaching you out too, to see what I can do to help our communities and better our community. So thank you again, and I appreciate all of you for being a part of this Firehouse chat on tonight. Thank you again. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I love you all. I love you. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That's it. Thank you.